All right, welcome to our weekly live medical show on all matters health. My name is Beatrice Watare and this is Health Check. And tonight we're going to be focusing on children's trauma and grief support. Now, in many occasions, we are always concerned with adult mental health, especially when it comes to trauma as well as grief support. And while children are most of the time overlooked, it is important that we get to look into the effects of grief and also trauma and what it does to the children. And helping us with this conversation, we have Annabell. Karibu sana, Annabell, who I will allow to introduce herself, and she will just be helping us to demystify this topic, this conversation that we have today. But first of all, I just want to thank you, dear viewer, for tuning in tonight, and also please get to share the link to anyone you feel may need this conversation. You can share the link because we are live on YouTube, Pale Hope TV Kenya. So you can definitely get on there and share our link to friends and family, anyone who you feel may benefit from this conversation today. And for those of you who would love to send in questions, you can also send in on our WhatsApp number, which is 0708 222 and also our SMS line, which is 20933. So if you have any questions on the conversation we'll be having today, you can send it there. And if you have any comment, let us know where you're watching from. We will be glad to read all your comments coming in. So let's get down to it. Karibu sana, Annabell. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to have this conversation at a time like this.
Yeah.
We just celebrated World Mental Health Day in October.
Yes.
Yeah, so who is Annabell? Annabell Gichure, I call myself children's friend. All children that go through my hands, they're able to get empowered and are able to get nurtured. So Annabell Gichure is a child psychologist and director of Bella Minds International. So what are we doing? What we're doing is we are creating a mental wellness culture that is going to be beneficial for generations. So our target audience is children, teens, and now their parents.
Interesting. And what inspired you to, take that field?
As a teenager, I went through a mental health crisis because of body shaming in school.
Right.
That led to depression, and because of what I went through, I decided to become a voice for children in my generation.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's beautiful. Because I think I had a similar experience, in my teen years. And I think that's why I'm really interested with this conversation, because most of the time we just assume ni mtoto tu. My mom was telling me that she has to tune in today because most of the time we overlook children and what it has to do with them when it comes to grief and also trauma. So maybe let us just demystify the meanings of the two words, trauma and grief. What's the difference?
So trauma is an emotional response to a distressing event.
Okay.
So now we can break down distress further. So distress is stress that is unhealthy stress. We have positive stress and negative stress. So positive stress is eustress. So positive stress leads to motivation and it leads to productivity. Negative stress, which is distress, leads to negative response, which now leads to you becoming unproductive. So trauma is an emotional response to a distressing event. So we have three types of trauma. So we have acute, chronic, and complex. So what is acute trauma? Acute trauma is a single event. It's trauma caused by a single event. One event happened, then it led to trauma. Then we have chronic. Chronic is prolonged. It's trauma caused by prolonged stress. So for example, a child has grown seeing domestic violence. So it has taken a lot, it has taken a prolonged time. So now that causes chronic trauma. Then we have complex. Complex trauma is multiple events that have led to trauma. There was an accident, there was domestic violence. Now that causes the complex trauma. So now grief is a natural response to loss. It could be loss of a loved one, It could be loss of a relationship. It could be loss of a job. It could be loss of identity. Yeah. So that is the distinct difference of trauma and grief.
Okay. So what I get is that grief is one of the things that could cause trauma, especially in children.
Yes.
Okay. And maybe what are some other causes, apart from grief and loss of a loved one, what are the other things that could lead to trauma, especially for children?
So for children, now we're going to drop down to parenting. Okay. So we have abuse and neglect. If your child has gone through emotional, physical, psychological abuse or neglect, now that could cause trauma. Then if there is divorce and separation, that is loss of a relationship, that is the relationship of the parent and of the siblings, especially when the separation, one parent goes, all the children go separate ways. Now that is also causes trauma. Okay. And then we have natural disasters. Then war and conflict. Now war and conflict could be like what is happening right now at the moment. Let's say like in Russia, that could cause trauma in children. Yeah. Then we have violence, domestic violence and community violence. And then we have also for children, what causes trauma is going through different events in the family. So every family needs to have a mental wellness routine. So that means a family that is healthy, that has a mental wellness routine, has communication and has connection with the children. Right. So if that is missing, the day-to-day activities of a child might stress the child, and they're not able to express or communicate. Okay. So let's say bullying happened in school. They are not able to express it. Now, in the long run, that is going to become a traumatic event.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Those are quite many, causes. And I think it is really difficult to even notice the trauma that is going on in children, because most of the time they are not really ready to communicate. So, but what are some of the red flags that parents can look out for children who maybe could be going through trauma and the parents are unaware?
So the first thing is, as a parent, as a present parent, you'll be able to know children will manifest trauma differently. But the major ways to know is we have communication. Communication leads to expression. Right. So how the child expresses their emotions will lead that could be a red flag. So for example, how a child will communicate that they are angry or they have undealt with stress is regression. So regression is a child, let's say the child starts bedwetting. So for example, if the child is 13, they had stopped bedwetting. So they go back to a milestone, they go back in their developmental milestone. That is regression. So because that is a way of expressing that they're stressed. And some of these red flags, a parent notices if you're actually present and you have already learned your child. So there's regression. Then we have flashbacks and nightmares. So that shows that emotionally your child is stressed when they are manifesting in flashbacks, nightmares, and also them withdrawing. So we have teenagers and we have children. So a child of 6 to 12, and then we have 13 to 18. Yeah. So they're going to manifest differently. So when a child withdraws and isolates from the social circle, that is an alarm. Yeah. Because that shows that will lead to loneliness. Right. And then when there is emotional instability, your child is irritable, angry, all of a sudden they're happy. Now that also shows there is the emotional responses, the irritability, shows internally there's something they're struggling with, but they're trying to communicate.
Right.
So there's this myth I always hear from people is my child is becoming a bad child because my child is becoming rebellious. When your child is rebellious, that is communication.
Right.
And that is communication that I need attention, I need you to listen to me.
Yeah.
And so that now leads to, it manifests in behavior. So all of a sudden, we have the fight and flight mode when it comes to behavior responses. So when your child reacts to fight, that manifests to anger. And so what we should actually look out for is the day-to-day activities.
Right.
When you're talking to your child, when do you get from school? Because we should not look at the big red flags, because the society has brought out big red flags. These small things where the child no longer talks, isolates. All of a sudden, if your child used to express themselves, they have shut down, and then they numb.
Right.
So anything can happen to them. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. When a child tells you I'm okay is that is an alarm in itself.
Yeah. And I think you've mentioned two very important pointers, especially the bedwetting, because sometimes it is confused for, hii ni tabia tu ako nayo, acha kukunywa maji before ulale. And I think it's really important for us to even address them more. You've mentioned it, as you were giving me that response. You mentioned some myths and misconceptions that parents usually have or have engaged or have heard from outside. So what are some of the other myths and misconceptions so that we just lay it down bare?
As I said previously, is grief in children is going to end up faster because they don't understand what is happening.
Right.
So you find in this 21st century, I applaud this generation because these things have changed. There are cultures, we need to break from cultural norms,
Right.
where children are set aside when anything to do with grief is going on. Burial, they're set aside because they don't understand. They're going to understand later. So actually them withdrawing from the crowd, now that causes post-traumatic stress. Because emotionally, they have not processed what is happening.
Right.
And you never gave them the chance to process that moment. And then for children, their anger, as I said previously, their anger is bad behavior. It is rebellion.
Yeah.
Their anger is communication. And then for children, grief does not hit hard for children than adults. Because the reasons the community gives is their children.
Yeah.
And then they don't have, their feelings have not grown. And that is more of a societal norm that is easily breaking off because of the advancement of counseling and individuals.
Yeah.
And so the other myth and misconception is children are resilient. So children are resilient is they have the willpower because they are young. The older you get, the more that breaks you down. So children are resilient because the reason they give is they actually don't know what is happening. So we force resilience on them. So that resilience makes us not to deal with the problem at hand. So the challenge at hand is they need to process the relationship with the loved one, the loss, and also they need to process, they need to go down the memory lane So that you've deprived them of that. Yeah, so those are the distinct myths and misconceptions.
All right. And that is very common, especially in the African families
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah.
I think when you watch movies Zamajundi, you see kind of a difference. But I think it is important, even to those who are viewing right now and asking themselves, so what do I do when faced with that? So what are some of the steps you can give us just to help a child who maybe has shown some of these signs and some of these red flags of trauma and grief?
So the first thing with children, they need to feel safe.
Right.
You need to create a safe space. And I always say the first step of helping a child go through trauma and grief is the support system. Let's say it's a parent, a caregiver.
Yeah.
How self-aware are you? Are you, let's say you yourself have not dealt with trauma and grief. So if this child reminds you of trauma you've not dealt with,
Yeah.
you are not a safe space to this child, because they're going to be triggering what you've not dealt with. So it might manifest to anger. You might rush out on them without knowing.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is ensure you're a safe space to that child.
Right.
And then if you're a safe space to that child, create a safe space in that home. So how do you create a safe space in that home? Create safe routines. Creating safe routines is routines that have inclusion, so you are including them. Because when children go through loss, they feel alone. So now there's a gap. You need to fill that gap.
Yeah.
That is why you need to be a safe space.
Yes.
And you also need to provide that safe space. So that is a challenge that each parent or caregiver can pick it up.
Yeah.
And so after we have become the safe space, you have created the safe space, and you have also included them in the routines. Whatever routines were there before, ensure that those routines keep on going.
Right.
So that there is no gap, because any gap could cause depression, or any gap could cause them to withdraw, and that will not be a safe space. And then reassurance that you will be present no matter what, because in this stage, how children heal faster is expression.
Yeah.
Allow them to express, and they can express through drawing, they can express through talking.
Yeah.
And you see, they cannot talk to you if you're not a safe space. That is why the major thing is creating that safe space. Reassuring them that everything is okay.
Right.
And also acknowledging their feelings. Acknowledge they have lost a dad, they have lost a mom, they have lost a sister, they have lost a brother. Acknowledge how they are feeling and allow them to navigate through those feelings. The best you can do is being present. And also get support. We have support groups for parents. We have support groups for children. And also, as a parent or as a caregiver, work with a counselor. Because that, in the long run, it will not only help the child, but also help you.
Right.
And also, whatever, so when children are expressing their emotions, they're expressing their feelings, create the memory of the person or of the person that they've lost. Create an alive picture for them, so that they're able to speak out, they're able to process it, and they're able to also, if they feel that maybe they have guilt, I did not tell mommy this, I did not tell daddy this before he left. If they have such feelings, they can be able to air them out, so that we don't get to a point where they feel self-harm or suicidal thoughts. Because a lot of this emotional, when they're overwhelmed with emotions of guilt, shame, helplessness, and hopelessness, now they feel even you being a safe space, they are alone.
Yeah.
And that leads to self-harm and suicidal thoughts.
Okay. I mean, even from listening to you, I feel like maybe there are some cases whereby it could even be extreme. So is there any form of treatment that gets involved along the process, and what does it even take for the treatment to be done?
So when it comes to grief and trauma, every individual is unique. And when I say every individual is unique, the major treatment is psychosocial support. Psychosocial support is where we start from the family, community, and the society. So let me start from the family. You are already a safe space. The environment is safe for everyone to express their emotions. And at that level, you can seek family therapy from a counselor. So the counselor is going to work with you.
Okay.
So at a community level, we have support groups. You can plug into a support group, and that support groups have different activities which will help you navigate through the trauma and the grief. And when you have the community, I don't want to say the healing is faster, but because of you're like a family, you're able to the resilience muscle is built, and then because you're sharing with each other, you're able to heal faster. So when it comes to treatment, so let's say trauma that has not been dealt with, you can only be diagnosed by a psychiatrist in order for you to get treatment. So, I hear people saying, I think because of this traumatic event, I am depressed. And you ask them, why? How do you know you're depressed? The signs, the symptoms and signs they give you, you tell them, that is not depression. You need to be diagnosed. And that is something I would like people to actually pick up, that you do not diagnose yourself for depression or stress. A professional needs to diagnose so that you're put on treatment. It's the same way if you have malaria, you'll go to hospital, and then they do assessments, and then they tell you, yours is mild, so we'll give you this medication.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's get down to, cases of untreated trauma or undealt with trauma and grief. How can that affect the child, even, when we connect it to them being adults?
How can it affect the child as an adult or the child?
Well, we can look at both, because I think there are some adults who right now are struggling with grief that was not dealt with, or trauma that was not dealt with when they were children. So maybe we can do that too. When trauma, especially with children, goes untreated, goes unrecognized, or even undealt with. So what are some of the dangers that are associated with that?
So one thing I always say, untreated trauma is never silent. It's very loud. Because when you have untreated trauma, as an adult, for one, untreated trauma leads to loss of identity.
Okay.
Because you have an issue that should be in the unconscious, now it is in the unconscious. So it is driving you every day. So it means anything can trigger you.
Yeah.
Remember, trauma is an emotional response. So it means your emotions are unstable. So when it comes to, you'll have strained relationships. So meaning you'll not be able to connect with yourself. That is why it comes to loss of identity. You'll not be able to connect with others in the workplace, in your family. So now when it comes to the family, if you have untreated trauma, you're not able to connect with yourself, with others. So it also means you'll not connect with your children.
Yeah.
Now do you see it? If the cycle is not broken, so it becomes generational. Because it's passed, you're going to pass it on.
Right.
So a hurting person hurts others. So you're going to have strained relationships, loss of identity. You're going to be emotional, unstable. So that means you will not be productive.
Okay.
At the end of the day, when it comes to the wheel of life, we have the emotional, social, financial, your holistic being. The end goal is being productive. The end goal is being post-trauma. A person who has healed from trauma, what is the result is post-traumatic growth. So post-traumatic growth is you are seeing hope, and you're creating hope from your experience. Like the experience I gave from my end.
Yeah.
I went through body shaming, went through depression, and now I am a voice for children's mental health. So it means that is post-traumatic growth.
Right.
So when you have untreated trauma, you're going to have PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress. So now post-traumatic stress, the first thing is you're going to be disconnected to yourself and to others. That is holistically. Then strained relationships, and also anything can trigger you. So it means as a person, you're unstable. You're unstable to handle anything, to flourish or be productive.
Right.
And so, but now most of us are in denial. And how you'll actually see it in the family, where someone now gets into substance SUDs, which is substance use disorder. So now they get a coping mechanism of self-destructive behavior. So self-destructive behavior could be alcoholism, gambling, sexual activities. Yeah. So now that leads to, now that is the amplification of the PTSD.
Wow, interesting. I mean, we've learned so much just from the very first part of our show today. But anyway, guys, we'll be taking a very short break. But when we get back, we'll be looking into now the stages so that we can be aware when a child is recovering or when, we need to put in more effort in that. So we'll be right back after the break. So if at all you've not shared the link, please do so with your family and friends who may need this conversation today. We'll see you shortly.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live. In order to keep hope alive in the airwaves, Hope Media has a couple of initiatives. Friends of Hope. Friends of Hope is you and I forming a team of well-wishers and volunteers who give in cash and kind to support in spreading the gospel at Hope Media. Currently, Hope Media is running a campaign under Friends of Hope dubbed 100 for 1. Through the campaign, Hope Media is asking Hope FM and Hope TV listeners and viewers to give just 100 shillings in order to reach one more soul with the message of hope and the gospel. Engage with us on our social media platforms at Hope FM Live and at Hope TV Kenya. Kuwa rafiki mso leo.
All right, welcome back, and thank you so much for those of you who are sending in questions. We'll be tackling one of your questions right now, but for those ambao labda hawajajua where to get us on WhatsApp, is 0708222323. You can send in your questions there and we can definitely handle them right here. And just, we're continuing with this conversation on trauma, children's trauma, as well as grief support. And Annabell has really talked much into it, the introduction bit of it. And then we'll be getting deeper into now the nitty-gritties of how well we can help these kinds of children. But first of all, let me just read out one of the questions that has come in through our, this should be the SMS line. No, this is actually WhatsApp. So anasema, hello, I'm following. I'm Grace from Machakos County. Is it possible to recover from trauma that occurred from a very early age, about 4 years?
Yes, thank you, Grace, for that question. Yeah, that it is possible to recover from trauma.
Yeah.
If you go through the right stages. So the first thing is to seek help. Seek help. How do you seek help? You seek help from a counselor.
Yeah.
Because now, if it happened at 4 years, let's say you're 30.
Yeah.
That one needs professional help.
Right.
But there is hope if you reach out to a counselor, and also as a person, be willing to go through that journey. It is not an easy journey, but with a counselor, with the right counselor, you'll be able to overcome and you'll be able to thrive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means the very first step is to seek help.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. And I also see another question coming here. Can the loss of a pet bring trauma and prolonged grief in a child? My granddaughter's puppy died last month. Yeah.
Yes. Loss is loss. And loss has different meanings for different people.
Right.
So loss of a pet, probably for the parent.
Yeah.
For example, I am not a pet person. So if I lost a pet, I would heal in one day.
Yes.
That child has meaning for that pet. They have a relationship with that pet. And you can also tell that pet meant something for that child.
Yeah.
And so the earlier it is dealt with, the better. Since it is 1 month gone, I would advocate for that child going through child therapy. They'll be able to explore the emotions, and they'll also be able to process what happened and how they're feeling about that loss.
Yes.
Yeah. Because if it is untreated in long run, it's going to manifest in behavior changes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the cycle goes over and over again.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Maybe now we can talk about the stages and how one can know when a child is recovering.
So one thing I would like us to know that grief is a lifelong process.
Okay.
And because it's a lifelong process, healing comes at different stages for every individual because of our psychological and biological makeup and personality. So the first stage is denial or shock. That is where the child hasn't processed what has happened. So you'll hear a child saying, let me use a parent. My parent is coming home. Or they'll ask you, have you seen mom? They've just received the news, but they'll say, mom is knocking at the door.
Oh.
Or they're going to speak in a way that the person is still alive. So when that happens, what you should do is listen, be present, hug them, just assure them that you're present.
Yeah.
Because they're still processing the information.
Right.
They're still processing the news. So that is denial. And in this stage, the worst thing you do is shout at them. You didn't hear that? What? Not showing empathy. So I know you're also grieving. If it is a family, you're also grieving.
Yeah.
But this child, that is how they are processing the news. Or they would even go to a car and say, let me go and ask mom for the keys. Now they are coming to the terms of mom is coming. So they're still in denial.
Yeah.
So the best you can do in such, be present, and assure them that you'll be there no matter what, and just allow them to go through that phase.
Yeah.
So the next one is anger. So in anger, they've started acknowledging there's a gap. Dad is no longer here. Mom, my brother is no longer here, and they don't know how to express it.
Yeah.
But they are communicating. So they will have a lot of energy. Now that energy will manifest in anger. Now the energy translates to anger because it's the fight and versus flight. And in this stage, they'll have a roller coaster of emotions. And so the best thing you can do in this stage is to understand them. And when they're very irritable, when they're very angry, the same thing, be present and assure them that you're present. And this is when you can also introduce the close people to them so that they don't feel alone and they also don't feel that you're also now rejecting them because of their behavior.
Right.
That is the last thing you'd make a child feel. So the third one is bargaining. So this is when they're bargaining, or did this happen because I did this? Why did God take my mom? Why did God take my loved one? What could I have done that could have helped mom to stay?
Yeah.
So they start bargaining. So now, the way you handle it, they can have guilt and shame in this stage of bargaining.
Right.
So they'll feel guilty. I wish maybe I could have done this. My loved one would still be here. Maybe I would have said this. They would have refused to go and they would be here with me now. And also now they also feel, but why did they leave me? Why didn't they fight to be with me? So when they're in that stage, communicate to them that what they're feeling, there is nothing that they didn't do, or there's nothing they could have done that could have prevented it from happening. It is not their fault.
Right.
So now you reverse the conversation from being their fault. They're blaming themselves.
Yeah.
So assure them that it is not their fault that happened. And so now we get now to depression. Depression is where they feel helpless, they feel hopeless, and they feel alone, they're emotionally numb. And in this stage, if handled the right way, allow them to cry. They'll have a lot of sobbing and crying in that depression stage because they're going down the memory lane. This is what we would be doing. Mommy promised me this, daddy promised me this. Now will I get it? So that brings the aspect of I am actually alone.
Yeah.
There is a gap. So they feel hopeless, they feel helpless. And the best you can do in that stage is being present.
Right.
But now in this stage, also be on the lookout because they might also present thoughts of suicidal thoughts and self-harm. Especially when a child says, I wish I joined my loved one. I wish I joined my loved one. That one is a thing to look out for.
Right.
And when it gets to that, seek professional help because that shows the child is actually depressed.
Yeah.
And they are actually not able to deal with that stage. Now the last one is acceptance. Acceptance is when they are healing.
Yeah.
But they have accepted that the loss happened and they want to become a better person through the loss.
Yeah.
I'm going to study hard so that I make mommy proud.
Oh.
I'm going to study hard so that I become an engineer like dad. I'm going to study hard so that my sister is going to smile up from heaven. So now you see, they have hope. They're speaking with hope.
Yeah.
So now, when it gets to acceptance, there's post-traumatic growth.
Right.
And so that is the 5 stages. But I always say, as a parent, even after acceptance, have routines
Yes.
that steer the post-trauma, the growth,
Yeah.
such that when you have the anniversaries, they can include them
Yeah.
in creating a memory lane list, in creating something product, something they're going to be proud of,
Yeah.
so that, as I said, grief is a lifelong process.
Yeah.
So you'll have the feelings of on and off of, I wish so and so would be here.
Yeah.
But if you have a routine of creating the positive memory lanes, it's going to be fruitful for the children, even 10 years or 5 years later.
Oh, all right. Wow, amazing. You've broken that down very well. And I think even the parents watching can now even know what stage, their child could be in. And maybe now let's look at tukivuka upande mwingine wa adults. In your practice, have you dealt with cases whereby adults are coming in and, talking about childhood traumas? And, how does the healing process look up for them?
Yeah. In my counseling career, I think actually 80% of behaviors manifesting in adulthood are childhood traumas.
Interesting.
So things that were not dealt with, they would have been dealt with earlier, but now they're amplified by circumstances. For example, marriage, parenting, being in a toxic workplace. So now you see there are triggers that lead to the remembrance of the childhood traumas. The only way to deal with childhood traumas, I have one mantra, and I always tell my clients this is, I am extending a hey to you. So the hey is written H-E-Y. So it is heal, evolve, and yield. So healing is a process.
Yeah.
So when I extend, now to you, Beatrice, when I extend my hey to you, it's I'm asking you, have you healed? Are you evolving, and are you yielding? So healing, for you to heal, you need to seek help. And you need to seek help in the right places.
Yeah.
You might come to me as a counselor, then I actually recognize that we need to seek psychiatric help first. Then you come to me. You wouldn't have known that if you didn't seek help.
Yeah.
So the first step of healing is seek help in the right places. Then evolve. As you're seeking help, as you're healing, what we call the post-traumatic growth, you're going to evolve and you're going to nurture the aspects of your post-traumatic growth. We are healing from different things.
Yeah.
So whatever you're healing from, you're going to grow out of it and you're going to grow through it.
Right.
So that is, you're evolving.
Yes.
Yielding is being productive. So you're going to be productive in your family, in the society, and in the community. So how I would ask a person who has not healed from the childhood trauma is, when do you want to start your hey mantra? When do you want to heal? When do you want to evolve? And when do you want to yield? Because it all starts from you.
Yeah.
I am able to help everybody, but I can only help you if you come to me and say, I need help. So that is always the first step.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm forever going to remember that hey mantra. Every time someone say hey to me, I'm like, yeah. I learned something. All right. Maybe just to get a little bit personal, when it comes to maybe some of the cases, without mentioning names, is there any inspirational story you'd love to share, a success story of someone who dealt with, childhood trauma and came on the other side, or even a child? Any story that you can share with us?
As I said previously, all stories are very unique.
Yeah.
And as a therapist, I would be proud to say that all stories I have held are success stories. Because all stories, when people come in, they are broken.
Yeah.
They need help. And I'm always so happy working with them through.
Yeah.
And in their capacity, because we all have different capacities depending with our personality and also depending with where we are at in life. All stories I have dealt so far, to me, are success stories, because I have seen people come into my office dealing with a challenge,
Yeah.
and they are able to overcome it and also thrive in different areas.
Yeah.
Starting from children and adults. So I can't pick out which story was better than the other.
Yes.
But to me, all the stories I've held, they're success stories, because I've seen people heal, and I have seen them evolve, and I am seeing them productive. And that is the beauty of counseling.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I think anyone listening really needs to hear, from a hopeful perspective. And I don't know, maybe what can you say to someone who is probably going through, a childhood trauma that they never even dealt with? Is there hope for them? What words of encouragement would you give them?
The first hope is you are alive, and you are present, and you are the greatest resource to your healing. You are the greatest. The only thing you need to say is, I have decided to start today. So what I would tell such a person is, the first thing we thank God for is you are alive, you're well, and you have managed to come this far. You should actually clap for yourself. And because you're the greatest resource, my challenge to you is, when are you reaching out for help? When are you reaching out to create your hey mantra? Because it all starts with them.
Yeah.
I can see that probably, let me give an example. I can see that you actually need help.
Yeah.
But when it comes to counseling, it is you who takes the first step.
That's true.
So when will you start your hey mantra? That would be my question. When will you start your hey mantra? Our arms are ready and open to receive you. We only need you to reach out.
Yeah.
You can start today, and you can heal, and you can thrive. And together, through that, we're going to create the hey culture. From the hey mantra, we create the hey culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. And maybe we can also say a word to anyone, or say a parent or a caregiver who is dealing with grief, and the child is also involved in the grief. What can we tell them today?
So for the parent and the caregiver, thank you for actually also agreeing to be present in that journey of that in the child's journey.
Yeah.
Because you're also going through grief, and so is the child going. So you being present, it's actually something you should be proud of. And also self-awareness of, are you taking initiative in getting help for yourself as a parent, as a support system for the child? When you're getting support, you don't get support from you get support from a person who has more.
Yeah.
So if you're supporting the child, it means you need to be self-aware, you need to be mentally balanced, you need to be emotionally balanced. So as a parent, do you have a support system that is supporting you in that? That is my challenge to them would be, please plug into a support system, a support group, where as you're supporting this child, you're also getting the support you seek. We have a lot of, I run grief support groups, and the other counselors out there run support groups, plug into them. We also have online support groups, and also church support groups. The church is also a place you can plug in that has support groups. So get a support system.
Yeah.
Now choose where you feel safe, because you need a safe space to be able to deal with your emotional well-being. Practice self-care so that you're able to support your child. And by dealing with yourself and by practicing self-care, you're also modeling how how the child will go through that grief.
Right.
So you're not only doing it for you, but remember the child is watching.
Yes. Okay. And I think part of why I really love this conversation is because, children are very much overlooked when it comes to their mental health. And we've seen so many cases of even children committing suicide. And the parents are like, I didn't even see this coming. But in real sense, it's those little issues that maybe people ignore. So maybe as we wind up, what would be your last remark on children's mental health?
Children matter.
Yeah.
And children speak louder than we adults, but they speak differently. So my last remark is, have we created systems from the family, from the society, from the community, from the church? Have you created systems to listen to the children around you? I have created those systems in my places of influence.
Right.
And any child who has gone through me, I am 100% sure their well-being is well taken care of.
Yeah.
So have you created those systems to be able to listen to the children? And I always say this from a parenting perspective and from a community perspective. I call it parenting from the lens. The lens helps us to see distance, it projects. So parenting from the lens is listen to children, not to respond, but to understand.
Right.
How are you engaging your children? Engage your children from their language perspective. The way you engage your firstborn, not the same way you engage your second, and the way you engage children in school, not the same way you engage children in the church. Then nurture. What are you nurturing? So you cannot fight without a strategy. If you fight without a strategy, you're going to be, that is a defeat. You're going to be defeated in that fight.
Yeah.
So what are you nurturing in the children? Then the S is support. So how are you supporting your children? Have you created systems in school and in the church and around the community to be able to support children, your children, and your neighbor's children?
Yes.
Because remember, children, if you empower your children and you don't empower children in the next door, they will interact.
Yeah.
So now that is a call to action to us. And then there is empower. So how are you empowering your children? What are you doing about empowering them? And children are a blessing from God. And let us take up the mantle to empower them and to listen to them.
Yes.
And let's allow them, let us be a safe space for children to be able to grow. And if you need any help with children, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to personal development, because the more your child is growing, the more empowered they're becoming, and the more they're able to express themselves and they're able to communicate.
Yeah.
So if you have created that culture, it means that as a country, as a society, and as families, we are thriving.
Yeah.
So from the hey culture that we are creating, are you supporting your child to heal, evolve, and to yield, so that we have now the post-traumatic growth? Or are you actually leading your children or the children around you to PTSD?
Okay.
It is a call to action.
Yeah.
The choice is yours, because children, God has blessed us with the children, and whatever we touch and whatever we do with the children,
Yeah.
it is a call. It is a call for us to it is a call for us to create that mental wellness culture, to also create systems that support and empower the children.
Wow, amazing. That's a really powerful parting shot. And thank you so much, Bella, for coming through. Anita, Annabell, lakini Bella. So people can find you at Bella Minds International? Is that you can tell us about the socials so that anyone who would love to ask a question can also, come through on your pages.
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook, Annabell Gichure Favor, LinkedIn, Ambassador Annabell Gichure, then TikTok at Bella Psychologist, and also through our contacts.
Yes.
Through our contacts, so which is 07, our business line, which is 0745 541 and 07777.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Bella, for coming through. I mean, you have really made a lot of us, even I personally, understand so much and how we can help the children. And I think from all those that have been viewing us tonight, I do hope that you've gotten a thing or two. I mean, for me, what I've gotten is that we need to be present. These children, just like we need that support as adults, so do the children need as well. And for those who are maybe dealing with childhood traumas in their adulthood, the mantra is there, and it's, hey, the one thing is to heal and then evolve and then yield. I got it right. Yes, and that will be my mantra today. And I hope that is your mantra today as well. My name is Beatrice Watare, and you've been watching Health Check. Have a good night.